little bit of Bob Marley, Garveyite, lyrical Garveyism, musical Garveyism, spiritual Garveyism. Good Garvey Day, peace and black power to all my brothers and sisters around the world. I want to give peace and blessings to my brothers and sisters right here, the American African community, the 50 states and territories. Shout out to Texas, Los Angeles. Shout out to Little Rock, Milwaukee. Shout out to Canada. Shout out to the Africans in Mexico, D.C., Brooklyn, Queens, Harlem, Staten Island, Bronx, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, North Philly, Southwest Philly, Mount Airy, Darby, Yeadon, North Philly, Susquehanna Avenue babies, Allegheny Avenue babies, Lehigh Avenue babies, Ridge Avenue babies, Girard Avenue babies, all my Meade Elementary School babies, my Bieber Junior High School, West Philly, Winfield babies. I am here. I am here. Y'all can fight over who the best rapper in Philly is. We know who the king of the conscious community in Philly is. Y'all can argue over who the best rapper in Philly is. There's no debating who's the top conscious mind in Philadelphia. I own it. I'm sorry. I don't own it in Philadelphia. I own it in the world. I don't own it in Pennsylvania. I own it in the world. I don't own it in the United States. I own it on all 7 continents. King Kong consciousness. Often duplicated, often imitated, never duplicated. Good evening, brothers and sisters. We're going to talk about a very important topic tonight. Good evening, brothers and sisters. We're going to talk about a very important topic tonight. And that is the life and legacy of the greatest Pan-Africanist of all time. The greatest black organizer of all time. The greatest black leader of the 20th century. I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to repeat that. The king of Pan-Africanism. The greatest revolutionary Pan-African nationalist of all time. The greatest black organizer of all time. The greatest black leader of the 19th century. Born under the sign of Leo, as was I. His name, His Excellency, the Most Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. This is a very timely message because this second day of Kwanzaa, Kujichagulia, is dedicated to self-determination. This second day of Kwanzaa, Kujichagulia, is dedicated to self-determination. There is no leader ever who has exemplified, displayed, manifested, taught the principle of self-determination more than His Excellency, the Most Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Brothers and sisters, let me be clear. Let me be clear. The 7 principles of Kwanzaa, for those of you who don't know this, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa: Umoja, unity; Kujichagulia, self-determination; Ujima, work and responsibility; Ujama, cooperative economics; Nia, purpose; Kuumba, creativity; and Imani, faith. Kwanzaa was given to us by Dr. Malana Karenga, who I had the opportunity to meet for the first time in person at Cal State Long Beach when I keynoted the Black Consciousness Conference a few years ago. The largest attended Black Consciousness Conference in that university's history. Shout out to him. But I want to be clear. These 7 principles of Kwanzaa, these 7 principles of Kwanzaa are all taken from the philosophy and opinions of the Most Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, when you look at the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, you are looking at the foundation of Garveyism. That is Garveyism. We love Kwanzaa. We support Kwanzaa. Nothing's wrong with Kwanzaa. But let us be clear. The principles of Kwanzaa were extracted from the philosophy of Garveyism, which is the highest stage of revolutionary Pan-African nationalism. Ever since I started raising funds for the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy, particularly since we purchased the school last year, 7 days before the 201st birthday of the Most Honorable Frederick Douglass, who Marcus Garvey named the first Black Star Line ship after, the SS Frederick Douglass. The first Marcus Garvey Black Star Liner was named the SS Frederick Douglass. Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, never had a chance to meet Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass died February 20th of 1895. Marcus Garvey was 8 years old in Jamaica. Frederick Douglass died February the 20th of 1895. Marcus Garvey was an 8-year-old boy in Jamaica. He didn't get a chance to meet Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey didn't get a chance to meet Frederick Douglass. Marcus Garvey being born on August the 17th of 1887 is very significant. Marcus Garvey being born August the 17th of 1887 is very significant because 3 years before Marcus Garvey's birth, the Berlin Conference took place. The Berlin Conference took place. What was the Berlin Conference of 1884-1885? What was the Berlin Conference of 1884-1885? The Berlin Conference of 1884-1885 is when the European powers of the world came together in Germany. The European nations of the world came together in Berlin, Germany, 1884-1885, to divide up the African continent amongst themselves. No African was present at the time that the European powers came together and decided that Africa would be theirs. Rumor has it that the European powers of the world actually rolled out a cake in the shape of Africa. Rumor has it that the European powers of the world actually rolled out a cake in the shape of Africa. And after they decided which territories would go to England, which territories would go to France, which territories would go to Belgium, which territories would go to Germany. Once they decided which territories would go to Portugal, which territories would go to Spain, once they decided which Europeans would steal which African territories, the Berlin Conference of 1884-1885 is when the Europeans officially split up Africa amongst themselves. Not a single African was there. Not a single African was there. Now, why did the European powers come together in the Berlin Conference? Because they wanted to avoid war amongst each other. They wanted to avoid war amongst each other. There's something you all need to understand. Most wars fought on the global scale. World War I, World War II. If you study the background conditions of World War I and World War II, you will know that those wars just like the Cold War between America and Russia, just like the Cold War between America and China today. Those wars are fought over who will control Africa and her resources. I will repeat myself. I will repeat myself. Both world wars and both Cold Wars. Both world wars and both Cold Wars were fought over who would control Africa and her territories. So the Berlin Conference was a peace treaty amongst the Europeans, where they sought to non-violently decide who would take control of what in Africa. The Berlin Conference is one of the most important events in the study of white supremacy. The Berlin Conference is one of the most significant events that must be studied in order for you to thoroughly understand white supremacy, because it was from 1885 until today. It was from 1885 until today that the Europeans' control of the planet began with the subjugation and colonization of Africa and her resources. This is why we need the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. This is why we need the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy. At the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy, Garveyism, the philosophy and opinions of the most honorable Marcus Garvey, will be taught as a course, not a holiday, not an event, not a seminar. From kindergarten through 12th grade, your son and eventually daughter will master every tenet of the teachings of the highest stage of revolutionary Pan-African nationalism, and that is Garveyism. That is this right here. And we have to thank Queen Mother Amy Jakes Garvey, the second wife of Marcus Garvey. We have to thank Queen Mother Amy Jakes Garvey, the second wife of Marcus Garvey, for this. Because had it not been for her, there would be no philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. Had it not been for Queen Mother Amy Jakes Garvey, whose eldest son, Marcus Garvey Jr., joined the ancestors December the 8th. Whose oldest son, Marcus Garvey Jr., joined his mother and father in heaven December the 8th of this year. It was Queen Mother Amy Jakes Garvey who collected all of Mr. Garvey's speeches. It was his wife. See, that's a real black woman. While he was locked up in jail on phony charges of J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI, his wife, Queen Mother Amy Jakes Garvey, collected all the speeches and writings and interviews. Not all of them, but as many as she could collect, and she put them in this book. She put them in this book, The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. Had she not done that, most of you would have never known who this man was who inspired every other black nationalist organization that was created in this country after 1915. That's right. I don't care what organization you name, they copied Garvey, they borrowed Garvey, and in most cases, they did not give Garvey credit for what they took from him. I'm going to say it again. Every black organization that considers themselves nationalists borrowed Garvey, they copied Garvey, and in most cases, they did not give Garvey credit for what they took from him. So Marcus Garvey is born right after the Berlin Conference. Some of you know a couple of weeks ago, I was interviewed by a brother in New York who is a part of one of our legendary hip-hop groups. And that brother from New York who interviewed me, a very negative, non-supportive, coonish type of an interview, but he asked me a question. He said, Marcus Garvey never went to Africa. And he said it as if he was exposing something. Marcus Garvey never went to Africa. Why didn't Marcus Garvey go to Africa? Now the question, which is absolutely ridiculous, totally exposed how much he doesn't know about African history, world history, or black nationalism, or revolutionary Pan-African nationalism. Had he ever read a book on colonization? Had he ever read a book on racism, had he ever read a book on the rape of Africa, he would know that the Berlin Conference took place in 1884, 1885. He would know that Marcus Garvey could not have possibly gone to Africa because the Europeans had totally taken over the African continent. The only two countries that were not colonized by the European was Liberia and Ethiopia. And Marcus Garvey tried to get into Liberia, but the United States State Department sent W.B. Dubois. The United States State Department sent Dr. W.E.B. Dubois, the leading black scholar of the day, was sent to Liberia to destroy Marcus Garvey's plan to build a black Wall Street in Liberia for Africans in the diaspora who wanted to come back home. Dubois was the Lex Luthor to Marcus Garvey the Superman. Dr. W.E.B. Dubois was the Lex Luthor to Superman Marcus Garvey. It's always one of us that they get to take down one of us. W.E.B. Dubois went to Africa, met with the president of Liberia, the government of Liberia, at the request of the United States, and begged them to sever all ties in communication with Marcus Garvey. W.E.B. Dubois went to Africa. There were no airplanes then. He had to go by ship. There were no airplanes then. He had to go by ship. There were no airplanes then. He had to go by ship. And that jealous Negro went over there and destroyed an opportunity for Marcus Garvey to create a repatriation movement that the world had never seen. Now, Dr. W.E.B. Dubois, he did apologize. After Marcus Garvey died, Dr. W.E.B. Dubois did apologize. He did write a letter to Queen Mother Amy Jakes Garvey after her husband died, apologizing for the role he played in destroying the greatest black movement in modern history, the largest black movement ever, the greatest black organizer of all time. Yes, he apologized, but what good is an apology after the man is dead? What good is an apology after the man is dead? So at the age of 19, Marcus Garvey goes to Kingston, Jamaica in 1906. He begins working at a printing company. Marcus Garvey would become a master printer. This is important to understanding the success of the Garvey movement, because in young Marcus Garvey becoming a master printer, everywhere he went, he was able to print a newspaper, propaganda, information dissemination. Marcus Garvey understood that he had to protect his message. He had to educate the race. Marcus Garvey understood that if I do not print positive information about the African, if I do not motivate our people with the agenda of the Garvey movement, the American media will destroy my movement and destroy my message. To control your own narrative, you must print your own paper. To control your own narrative, you must create your own media. So Garvey built newspapers everywhere he went. This is critical because Garvey controlled his narrative. One of the messages we must learn from the example of the most honorable Marcus Garvey was that he understood the power of the printed word. Marcus Garvey understood the power of the printed word. And although he only wrote one book in his whole life, one book that is Message to the People, The Course of African Philosophy, just one book, Message to the People, Course of African Philosophy, although he only printed one book, he produced thousands of newspaper articles, thousands of magazine articles. Marcus Garvey was a master information propagandist, a master. A master. So, Marcus Garvey, mother dies. Queen Mother Garvey dies in 1908. Garvey is 21 years old. In 1910, he joins the National Club of Jamaica. This is important. This is important. In 1910, Garvey joins the National Club of Jamaica. This is where he would get his first tastes of Pan-African nationalism. This is where he would begin to develop those enormously powerful oratorical and communication skills. This is where Garvey would start debating and mastering the art of intellectual combat. His mentors at this time, Sandy Cox and Dr. Robert Love. I want to underline Dr. Robert Love for a minute. I want to underline Dr. Robert Love for a minute. I want to underline Dr. Robert Love. Y'all need to know this name. He was from the Bahamas. He was from the Bahamas. I had a chance to visit his home when I spoke at the University of the Bahamas with Jamaican Garveyite Muta Baruka. Shout out to Muta Baruka. We co-presented at the University of the Bahamas together. And I had a chance to visit the home of Robert E. Love. Why you need to know Robert Love? He was a friend of Frederick Douglass. He was a friend of Dr. Edward Wilmot Blyden. Robert E. Love, this Pan-Africanist in Jamaica, born in the Bahamas, would be critical for Marcus Garvey's intellectual and ideological development. It was Robert E. Love, more than anyone else on that island, with the exception of the other elders of the National Club, who really put into Garvey the Pan-Africanism that he would make so famous. This is important because there are some people of other organizations that have a Islamic persuasion who want to argue that it was Deuce Muhammad Ali that introduced Garvey to Pan-Africanism. You're wrong. Garvey doesn't meet Deuce Muhammad Ali until he's in England. Garvey doesn't meet Deuce Muhammad Ali until he is in England, when he starts writing for Deuce Muhammad Ali's newspaper, the African Times and Orient Revent. Garvey was already a Pan-Africanist before he got to London to visit his sister. He was already a Pan-Africanist. Deuce Muhammad Ali did not introduce Garvey to Pan-Africanism. In fact, as a member of the National Club in Jamaica, and under the mentorship of Dr. Robert E. Love, Garvey was writing for the newspaper for the National Club known as Our Own. Our Own. Our Own is the essence of Pan-Africanism. Our Own is the essence of Kujichagulia, self-determination. Garvey was already writing Pan-African articles before he left Jamaica. What are you Negroes talking about? Stop trying to take credit. It was Dr. Robert Love, not no Deuce Muhammad Ali, that gave Garvey his Pan-African nationalist foundation. So then Garvey starts traveling throughout Central America. He goes to Costa Rica, Panama. He goes all throughout the Central and South America. And Garvey said wherever he went, the most honorable Marcus Garvey said, wherever I went, I saw black people being mistreated, kicked about, treated like slaves, like animals. Marcus Garvey said, I looked up and I asked myself, Garvey said, I looked up and I asked myself, where is the black man's government? Where is the black man's king? Where is his queen? Where is his army? Where is his men of high affairs? And Garvey said he looked all around and he did not see it, so he decided. Garvey at that moment decided that I would help to make them. Garvey said, this cannot be for my people. Garvey said, black people, African people, we do not belong on the bottom. We were not intended to be on the bottom. I will give my life to the resurrection of Africa and African people, those at home and those abroad. That's what Garvey decided. So he goes to London to visit his sister. He takes several courses at Birkbeck College. He did not earn a college degree, but he did study at the university level. Garvey returns to Jamaica, July the 8th, 1914. On his cruise back to Jamaica from England, now we're going to talk about this man behind me. Now we're going to talk about this man behind me. Now we're going to talk about this man on the wall behind me. On Garvey's way home, he read a book written by the founder of Tuskegee Institute by the name of Booker T. Washington. The name of the book was Up From Slavery. The name of the book that Garvey read on his way home to Jamaica from England was called Up From Slavery, Booker T. Washington. It was that book more than anybody else, more than anything else. Let me say it again. Let me say it again. It was that book written by that man up from slavery more than anything else or anybody else that motivated Marcus Garvey to build the largest black organization in modern history. On July the 20th, with the assistance of his first wife, then girlfriend, on July the 20th, with the assistance of his first wife, then girlfriend, Queen Mother Amy Ashwood Garvey, the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League was birthed to the world. July the 20th, 1914, the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League was launched in Jamaica. But there was a problem. There was a problem. And the problem was that Garvey wanted to build a mass racial organization to uplift Africans everywhere. This did not sit well with the black bourgeoisie of the Caribbean. Marcus Garvey's idea of a global movement for African people, whether they were light-skinned or dark-skinned, whether they were Muslim or Christian, whether they spoke Spanish or English, did not sit well with the black bourgeoisie of Jamaica. And therefore, the UNIA did not take off in Jamaica the way it would take off when Garvey got to the United States. Yes, it was Jamaica where Garveyism was born, but Garveyism did not grow into the strong tree that it would become until Garvey planted those seeds in New York City. It is important, brothers and sisters. It is important, brothers and sisters, to understand why Garveyism succeeded in America, but it did not succeed in Jamaica. Why did Garveyism succeed in America before it could succeed in the Caribbean islands? Because in America, white supremacy only has one group for black folks. You're black, whether you are super light, light bright, butter almond, pecan, pistachio, fudge, chocolate. Everybody's black in America. There might be certain privileges for the light skin. There might be certain disadvantages for the dark skin. But legally, there is only one category for African people in the United States. However, in the Caribbean islands, they had a very sophisticated, racialized color hierarchy that still exists to this day. Let me repeat that. In the Caribbean islands, they have a very sophisticated racial color hierarchy based on skin tone that is legally codified that exists to this very day. What am I talking about? In the Caribbean, you have octoroon, you have quadroon, you have mulatto. In the Caribbean islands at that time, being one shade lighter or one shade darker was the difference. In the Caribbean islands at that time, being one shade lighter or one shade darker was the difference between working for the government or picking up the trash. Was the difference between a good job or no job. Was the difference between going to college or never getting an education at all. So in a society where black people were vying for a color supremacy, Garvey's idea could not take root because Garvey wanted unity for the race. Where at that time in the Caribbean, the black bourgeoisie could care less about unity for the race. They wanted the crumbs from the slave master's table. So Garvey begins communicating with Booker T. Washington. Garvey begins communicating with Booker T. Washington. He wants to open up a Tuskegee type of an institute in Jamaica. Garvey wants to open up a Tuskegee type of an institution in Jamaica. So on October the 3rd of 1915, on October the 3rd of 1915, on October the 3rd of 1915, Booker T. Washington invites His Excellency, the Most Honorable Marcus Garvey, to America to visit Tuskegee Institute on October the 3rd of 1915. Garvey packs up. He sets sail. He leaves Jamaica on March the 6th, 1916. When Garvey finally gets to America in March of 1916, Booker T. Washington had already died. Booker T. had died before Garvey could meet him. Garvey goes to Tuskegee anyway, and he meets with Booker T's second in command, who is now first in command. He goes to Tuskegee anyway and meets with Booker T's second in command, who is now first, and that man's name was R.R. Moulton. R.R. Moulton, the new principal of the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial School. Marcus Garvey doesn't have a good impression of R.R. Moulton. Prophetically so, we find out later that R.R. Moulton, the man who replaces Booker T. Washington, was an undercover army agent. R.R. Moulton, the man that replaces Booker T. Washington as the head of Tuskegee, was an undercover army agent whose job was to spy on Booker T. Washington. Because although you've been taught that Booker T. was an accommodationist, he was not. Booker T. Washington was a pan-Africanist who was using Tuskegee Institute as a hideout spot for black radicals. Booker T. Washington was using Tuskegee Institute as a hideout spot for black radicals. Yes, he told the white man what he wanted to hear, But that was a distraction so that Booker T would not draw suspicion to Tuskegee, because any black radical in America who needed a place to hide out and get some food and some clean clothes and a place to live could go to Tuskegee Institute. This is the same Booker T. Washington who secretly financed civil rights cases for black America out of his own pocket. I'm going to say it again. This is the same Booker T. Washington who personally financed civil rights cases out of his own pocket in order to help push black America forward. There's a book y'all need to read. This is a book y'all need to read. This is a book y'all need to read about him. It's called Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist. You need to read this book. The author is a strong black sister out of New York City who published this book a few years ago. I consider this book to be one of the greatest books of the past 50 years. This black woman who's still alive right now, Sister Tyreen Wright. God bless Sister Tyreen Wright for writing this book. Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist. You need to go online and order this book right now. Anybody who don't think Booker T. Washington was a Pan-Africanist, you better go online and order this book right now. Booker T. Washington and Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist by Tyreen Wright. Sister, you have written one of the most important books for Pan-Africanists in the last 50 years. Let me ask you guys a question. How many of you guys knew that Booker T. Washington was a good friend of this man? How many of y'all knew that Booker T. Washington was good friends with Henry Sylvester Williams, who convened the first Pan-African Conference in 1900? Who knew that? Who knew that? Henry Sylvester Williams, the Trinidadian lawyer who hosted the very first Pan-African Conference, was friends with Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington was supposed to speak at the first Pan-African Conference ever in 1900, but he wasn't able to make it. However, Booker T. Washington still advertised and promoted the first Pan-African Conference in England in 1900. That man was a Pan-Africanist. That man was a Pan-Africanist. Did y'all know that before Marcus Garvey and before W.B. Dubois, did y'all know before Marcus Garvey and before W.B. Dubois, Booker T. Washington hosted at Tuskegee the International Conference of the Negro? I'm going to say it again. At Tuskegee Institute, before Marcus Garvey, before W.B. Dubois, Booker T. Washington hosted the first International Conference of the Negro at Tuskegee, where he brought Africans from Africa. He brought Africans from Africa to Tuskegee and taught them how to build institutions back home in Africa. That's facts. Marcus Garvey wasn't even in the country yet, and Booker T was working with Africa. Marcus Garvey wasn't even in the country yet. Marcus Garvey had not come to America yet, and Booker T. Washington was hosting conferences at Tuskegee for Africans. This is why we need the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. This is why we need the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. This is why we need the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. So let us continue. Garvey meets with R.R. Moulton at Tuskegee. He doesn't really like the guy. Garvey comes back to New York. Garvey launches a 38-state speaking tour. 38-state speaking tour Marcus Garvey would go on. Partly to raise money to go back to Jamaica and open up a Tuskegee type of a school in Jamaica. Garvey said, while I'm here, let me do this speaking tour. Raise money for Tuskegee in Jamaica. And when Garvey finished the tour, 38 states. When Garvey finished the tour, he's ready to go home to Jamaica and build Jamaica Tuskegee. And the Pan-Africanist in New York City, convinced the Honorable Marcus Garvey to stay in America. This is critical. This is critical. The Pan-Africanist in New York City convinced Marcus Garvey to stay in America. They said, Garvey, you can do better here than you can in Jamaica. They said, Garvey, you can do better here than you can in Jamaica. So Marcus Garvey decides to stay in New York City. He begins speaking in Harlem, along the infamous 125th Street soapbox orator platform that 40 years later, a child of Garveyism, Malcolm X. 40 years later, a child of Garveyism, Malcolm X. 40 years later, a child of Garveyism, Malcolm X, would also be out there speaking on 125th Street, but Garvey was out there first. And when Garvey got on the speaker's platform, when Marcus Garvey would get up on the soapbox and start speaking and say, up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will, he electrified Black America in a way no leader had done since Frederick Douglass. When Garvey first started the UNIA division of the New York City division of the UNIA, opportunists came into the movement and tried to destroy it. That's right. The haters came in. The haters came in. The haters came in. And at the early beginning of the organization, they sabotaged the UNIA the first time. They sabotaged it a second time. They sabotaged the New York division of the Garvey movement a third time. But Garvey did not quit. Garvey kept on starting over and starting over and starting over until finally they were able to build the nucleus of the New York UNIA. Without no haters and opportunists around. You can't build serious Black organizations with haters and opportunists. You can't build serious Black organizations with haters and opportunists. Had Garvey quit, you would have never got that red, black, and green flag. Had Garvey quit, Pan-Africanism would have never become what it was. Had Garvey gave up, he would have never accomplished the things that he did, psychologically transforming the consciousness of an entire race of people. See, there's something you need to know about Garvey. There's something you need to know about Garvey right now. And this is why you cannot compare him to any other leader after him. Marcus Garvey is the only leader we had since slavery in the world, who was a leader of African people in the world. Marcus Garvey was not just the leader of something in America. Marcus Garvey was leader of Africans in the world. Everywhere you looked, he built a chapter of the Garvey movement. Everywhere you looked, there was Garveyites. Garveyites in the Caribbean, Garveyites in Central and South America, Garveyites in Europe, Garveyites in Asia, Garveyites in Australia, Garveyites everywhere you look. Marcus Garvey is the only leader we can say who was leader of the African race, not leader of the American Africans, not leader of the Jamaican Africans, not leader of the Caribbean Africans. Marcus Garvey was leader of the African race. You don't believe me? Let me give you some information on the Marcus Garvey divisions. Let me give you some information on the Marcus Garvey divisions. Let me give you some information on the Marcus Garvey divisions. This is coming out of a book called Garvey's Children. This is coming out of a book called Garvey's Children by Tony Sewell. You might want to order it. The Legacy of Marcus Garvey, Garvey's Children by Tony Sewell. You might want to read this, because in this book you learn about all the people who took from Garvey but didn't give him credit. In this book you learn about all the people who copied Marcus Garvey and did not give him credit. But let me read some of the chapters. Listen. In the state of Louisiana, there were 74 branches of the Garvey movement. Did y'all hear what I just said? Did y'all hear what I just said? Did y'all hear what I just said? In the state of Louisiana, there were 74 branches of the Garvey movement. In the state of Virginia, 48 branches of the Garvey movement. In the state of North Carolina, 47 branches of the Garvey movement. Pennsylvania, 45 branches of the Garvey movement. West Virginia, 44 branches. Mississippi, 44 branches. Ohio, 39 branches. Arkansas, 38 branches. New Jersey, 31 branches. Florida, 28 branches. Oklahoma, 28 branches of the Garvey movement in Oklahoma alone. Don't you ever compare Garvey to nobody who came after him. None of them did what he did or even came close. None of them did what he did or even came close. Oklahoma, 28 divisions of the Garvey movement. 28. Let me tell you a little secret. Let me tell you a little secret. Let me tell you a little secret. I'm not stealing anything from Tariq. Tariq can't tie my intellectual shoes. He can't tie, there's not a person in the conscious community who can tie my intellectual shoes. Let me get back on topic. And I'm going to send you to the block party the next comment you make. Bring me some seafood salad. Let me stay focused. Don't ever compare a king to a coon. Don't ever compare a king to a coon. Let us stay focused. This is what I want you to know about Oklahoma. This is what I want you to know about Oklahoma. This is what I want you to know about Oklahoma. Remember the Tulsa race war? What year was the Tulsa race war? What year was the Tulsa race war? 1921. When was the Rosewood, Florida race war? 1923. The Tulsa race war was 1921. Rosewood was 1923. What was going on in America in 1921? In 1923, Marcus Garvey was going on. There were Garveyites involved in the Tulsa race war. There were Garveyites involved in the Rosewood race war. That's right, brothers and sisters. There was Garveyites involved standing up, defending the black community in Tulsa. There were Garveyites involved standing up, defending the black community in Rosewood. If you don't believe me, go do your research. Garvey influenced all of that and so much more. Garvey influenced all of that and so much more. Georgia, 26 divisions of the Garvey movement. Illinois, 23 divisions of the Garvey movement. South Carolina, 24 divisions of the Garvey movement. Missouri, 21 divisions of the Garvey movement. California, 16 divisions of the Garvey movement. Guess what else, California? Guess what else, California? Guess what else, California? The first black woman to be nominated by a major party for its vice presidential nomination. Her name was Charlotta Bass, and she was a Garveyite out of California. Do your research, black feminist. Charlotta Bass, the first black woman to receive a major nomination from a party to be vice president in America out of California, was a member of the Garvey movement. Y'all can't deal with me tonight. Y'all can't deal with me tonight. Y'all can't deal with this truth tonight. Y'all not ready for this. Y'all not ready for this. Let's keep on going. Missouri, 21 divisions. California, 16 divisions. New York, 16 divisions. Michigan, 14 divisions. And we know about Michigan, right? Because I believe Malcolm X's father, Earl Little. Malcolm X's father, Earl Little, and Malcolm X's mother, Louise Little, rest in paradise to all of them. Malcolm X's father, Earl Little, and Malcolm X's mother, Louise Little, were officers of the Garvey movement. And they were officers in either Lansing, was it Omaha, Nebraska? I think it was in Michigan. When Malcolm's family moved to Michigan, I believe that's when his father became leader of a UNIA division, Earl Little. He could have been leader in Omaha, Nebraska, but I think he didn't become leader until they moved to Michigan. I got to double check that. But what we do know is that Malcolm X's mother and father were officers in Garvey's organization. In fact, when Marcus Garvey was arrested, Malcolm X's father wrote to the president of the United States. Y'all not ready. Y'all not ready for this. Y'all not ready for this. You don't want to go there with me on Garveyism because I will expose you. You don't want to go there with me on Garveyism. Malcolm X's father, Earl Little, president of a UNIA division, wrote to the president of the United States demanding that Marcus Garvey be released from prison. That's what Malcolm X's father did. Do your research. Do your research. Do your research. Do your research, brothers and sisters. Malcolm X's mother used to write for Marcus Garvey's newspaper, The Negro World. Louise Little was one of the leading female contributors. Malcolm's mother was a leading contributor to the Negro World newspaper. Go do your research. I got a little treat for you. Let's see what Malcolm X had to say about his parents in the Garvey movement. I got a little treat for you. Let me find where Malcolm said it. Let me tell you what El Hajj Malik El Shabazz himself said about his parents in the Garvey movement. Where is it at? Where is it at? Where you at, Brother Malcolm? Long live El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. Let me find Malcolm. Tell you what Malcolm said. Where you at, Malcolm? Give me 1 second, brothers and sisters. I'm looking for Malcolm. They got everybody in this book. Dr. King is in this book. Y'all do know that after Malcolm was murdered, after Malcolm X was murdered, after the son of Garveyites was murdered, Dr. King went to Jamaica and visited the grave of Marcus Garvey. After Malcolm was murdered, Dr. King came to Jamaica and visited Garvey's grave. Martin Luther King Jr. came to Jamaica, visited Garvey's grave. And once Dr. King got back to America, after visiting Garvey's grave in 1965, right after Malcolm was murdered, Dr. King comes back to America after visiting Garvey, his grave, and Dr. King started sounding like Marcus Garvey. Dr. King started sounding like Marcus Garvey. Dr. King started sounding like Marcus Garvey. You don't believe me? Listen to Dr. King from 65 to 68. Listen to Dr. King from 65 to 68 and tell me he was in touch with the spirit of Garveyism. Listen to Dr. King from 65 to 68 and tell me he don't sound like the most honorable Marcus Garvey. Where you at, Malcolm? Hold on. I got a quote in here from Malcolm about his parents growing up in the Garvey movement. Where you at, Malcolm? I want to quote Malcolm L. Hodge. Where you at, Malcolm? Here we go. Y'all ready? Let me quote. Black Muslim activist Malcolm X was another person whose early life was connected to the rise of Garveyism in America. He explained in his autobiography how as a child, his father was in perpetual fear for his family because he was a member of Marcus Garvey's movement. He recalls a particular incident where Malcolm X says, quote, Malcolm X says, quote, when my mother was pregnant with me, she told me later, a party of hooded Ku Klux Klan riders galloped up to our home. Brandishing shotguns and rifles, they shouted for my father to come out. The Klansmen shouted, and on earth, did y'all hear that? Malcolm X said, the most honorable Marcus Garvey was the most controversial black man on earth. Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, said that Marcus Garvey was the most controversial black man on earth. The book goes on. Most of Malcolm's family had lost their lives through lynching, including 6 uncles. How many of y'all knew that 6 of Malcolm X's uncles were lynched? How many of y'all knew that 6 of Malcolm X's uncles were lynched? His father was killed doing work for the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Malcolm X's father was killed for the work he was doing on behalf of African people for the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Listen to this. The death of Malcolm's uncles had been the primary impetus to his father being willing to risk his own life to spread the Garvey message. Malcolm describes a typical UNIA meeting. Listen, brothers and sisters. This is Malcolm X talking about life in the Garvey movement as a child. Because some of y'all think Malcolm X didn't have no black consciousness until he got out of jail. Some of y'all think Malcolm X didn't have any consciousness until he got out of jail. Well, if that's the case, listen to this quote. Malcolm X describes a typical UNIA Garvey meeting to which his father would take him. Malcolm says, quote, I can remember hearing of Adam driven out of the garden into the caves of Europe, Africa for the Africans, Ethiopia awake. And my father would talk about how it would not be much longer before Africa would be completely run by African people. By black men was the phrase that my father would use. No one knows when the hour of Africa's redemption cometh, it will be here. Malcolm X continues, quote, I remember seeing big shiny photographs of Marcus Garvey that were passed around from hand to hand. My father had a big envelope of them that he always took to those meetings. The picture showed what seemed to me millions of blacks
thronged in the parade behind the Honorable Marcus Garvey, riding in a fine car. A big black man dressed in a dazzling uniform with gold braid on it, and he was wearing a thrilling hat with tall plumes. Malcolm X goes on, I remember hearing that he had black followers, not only in the United States, but all around the world. And I remember how the meetings always closed with my father saying several times, and the people chanting after my father, up, up, you mighty race. You can accomplish what you will. Those are the words of Malcolm X as he remembers growing up as a child in Marcus Garvey's UNIA. And Malcolm X, the last year of his life, would return to the teachings of the most honorable Marcus Garvey when he started the Organization of Afro-American Unity to organize American Africans and tie us into the African Union on the continent. You don't want to go there with me. The question isn't who was a Garveyite. The question is who wasn't a Garveyite. The question isn't who did Marcus Garvey influence. The question is who didn't Marcus Garvey influence. The name of the book is Garvey's Children by Tony Sewell. The name of the book is Garvey's Children. Let's go back because we're not done. Let's finish with the Garvey divisions in America. Indiana, 13 divisions of the Garvey movement. Alabama, 11 divisions of the Garvey movement. Connecticut, 10 divisions of the Garvey movement. Maryland, 10 divisions of the Garvey movement. Tennessee, 9 divisions of the Garvey movement. Texas, 9 divisions of the Garvey movement. Kentucky, 8 divisions of the Garvey movement. Kansas, 7 divisions of the Garvey movement. Massachusetts, 7 divisions of the Garvey movement. Colorado, 3 divisions of the Garvey movement. Arizona, 4 divisions of the Garvey unit. Delaware, 3 divisions of the Garvey unit. Washington, 3 divisions of the Garvey unit. Iowa, 2 divisions of the Garvey unit. Columbia, Washington, D.C., 2 divisions of the Garvey movement. Nebraska, 1 division. Oregon, 1 division. Utah, 1 division. Wisconsin, 1 division. I'm not done. Let's talk about the Caribbean islands. I'm not done. After today, you're comparing Garvey to nobody. Let's go to the Caribbean. Let's go to the Caribbean. Cuba. 52 divisions of Marcus Garvey's organization in the island of Cuba. 52 divisions of Marcus Garvey's movement in Cuba. Panama, 47 divisions of Garvey in Panama. Trinidad, 30 divisions of Garvey in Trinidad. Time out. Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture. Time out. Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture. Time out. Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture. Although he was a Pan-African socialist and not a Pan-African nationalist, he was from Trinidad. Do you not believe that some of those Garvey roots in Trinidad did not inspire Stokely Carmichael, who reintroduced the phrase Black Power? Black power didn't come from Stokely, it came from Garvey. Stokely reintroduced Garvey's phrase, Black Power. Canada, 15 divisions of Garvey in Canada. Jamaica, 11 divisions. The UNIA finally took root in Jamaica. Once the fire was lit in America, the Caribbean jumped on. 11 divisions in Jamaica. Honduras, 7 divisions of Garvey. South Africa, 8 divisions of Garvey. How many of you knew? How many of you knew that when the African National Congress was founded in South Africa, there were Garveyites involved in the founding of the ANC, and that John Dubé, one of the early leaders of the ANC, shout out to my South African brothers and sisters. I was supposed to be with you last June for the anniversary of the Soweto student uprising, but COVID canceled that. Shout out to all my South African brothers and sisters. Johannesburg, I love you. Soweto, I love you. Kailisha, I love you. KwaZulu, I love you. Durban, I love you. Cape Town, I love you. Zulus, I love you. Xhosa, I love you. Swazi, I love you. Shout out to all my South African brothers and sisters. When the ANC was founded, there were Garveyites involved in the founding of the ANC. Robert Sobukwe, who founded the Pan-African Congress. Robert Sobukwe, one of my greatest heroes, who was the mentor to Steve Biko. Robert Sobukwe, who was Steve Biko's mentor, was a Garveyite. Stop playing with me. Stop playing with me. Is Garveyism or get away from me? Is Garveyism or get away from me? It's Pan-Africanism or perish. It is Pan-Africanism or perish. You asked me about East Africa? Shout out to Kenya. You asked me about East Africa? Did you know that Jomo Kenyatta, one of the independence leaders of Kenya, met Marcus Garvey as a child in London? Jomo Kenyatta used to go listen to Marcus Garvey speak in London as a child, my brothers and sisters. As a child, Jomo Kenyatta used to go sit at Garvey's feet in London. Marcus Garvey is the father of African independence. Let's keep going. British Guyana, 7 divisions. Colombia, 6 divisions. Dominican Republic, 5 divisions of Garvey. Guatemala, 5 divisions. Barbados, 4 divisions of Garvey. British Honduras, 4 divisions of Garvey. Mexico, 4 divisions of Garvey. Sierra Leone, 3 divisions of Garvey. England, 2 divisions of Garvey. Ghana, 2 divisions of Garvey. Liberia, 2 divisions of Garvey. Bahamas, 2 divisions of Garvey. Panama, Southwest Africa, 2 divisions. Wales, 1 division. Antigua had a division. Australia had a division. Bermuda had a division. Brazil had a division. Dominica had a division. Ecuador had a division. Grenada, rest in peace to Maurice Bishop. Grenada, rest in peace to Maurice Bishop. Grenada, rest in peace to Maurice Bishop, had a division. Haiti had a division. Nevis a division. Nigeria a division. Speaking of Nigeria, Nnamdi Azikiwe, one of the independence fighters of Nigeria, went to school with Kwame Nkrumah in Philadelphia, Lincoln University, where they used to come to the Garvey meetings in Philadelphia. Kwame Nkrumah and Nnamdi Azikiwe, the leaders of an independent Nigeria and the leaders of an independent Ghana, went to school right here in Philadelphia, and they were members of the Garvey movement right here in Philadelphia. Puerto Rico, a division. St. Kitts, a division. St. Lucia, a division. St. Thomas, a division. St. Vincent, a division. Venezuela, a division. And guess what? And guess what, brothers and sisters? Guess what? These are not all of them. These are not all of them. These are not all of them. Why don't we have all the divisions listed? Why don't we have all the divisions listed? Because being a member of the Garvey movement was so controversial, so politically incorrect, that a lot of Garveyites had to hide their identity so they wouldn't go to jail. Garveyism was banned in a lot of African colonies. The Garvey newspaper was banned throughout Africa and in many Caribbean islands. If you got caught with the Negro World newspaper, If you got caught with the Negro World newspaper, you could go to jail, you could be killed, you could lose your job. That's how powerful Garvey was. Let's understand something. Let's understand something. When Garvey starts the UNIA in 1914 in Jamaica, when Garvey starts the UNIA in 1914 in Jamaica, World War I was just getting underway. When World War I ends in 1918, we're at the early years of Garvey in America. When World War I ends in 1918, we're at the early years of Garvey in America. Black men are coming home from the war. Black men are coming home from the war. And when black men come home from World War II, they walk straight into the red hot summer of 1919. The red hot summer of 1919. Race riots all over America. Why were there so many race riots during the red hot summer of 1919? Because black men had went to Europe to fight for America. Black men had went to Europe to fight for America and get back home and they can't find a job. Get back home, they got to deal with the Ku Klux Klan. Get back home, they got to deal with police brutality. So we decided we weren't going to take it no more and we started fighting back. And Marcus Garvey was a central figure in the red summer of 1919 because he told black men, Marcus Garvey is the father of black masculinity. Marcus Garvey is the father of black masculinity. Marcus Garvey is the father of black masculinity. He told black men, give up your wishbone and get a backbone. Marcus Garvey said, give up your wishbone and get a backbone. Marcus Garvey said, give up your wishbone and get a backbone. Brothers and sisters of other organizations, I welcome you. Please don't get disrespectful. Please don't get disrespectful because the leader of your organization was a Garveyite too. The leader of your organization was a Garveyite too. I'm going to come to that. Your whole organization was copied off of Garveyism. Don't be disrespectful. If it wasn't for Marcus Garvey, your leader would have never existed. Your organization would have never existed. Don't go there with me. I got the receipts. Don't go there with me. I got the receipts. All y'all come from Garvey. Don't hate. Don't hate. All y'all come from Garvey. Don't hate. Not one of you did not. All of y'all came from Garvey, but y'all don't want to give them no credit. Because if you tell people about Garvey, they wouldn't need y'all. If you tell people about Garvey, they wouldn't need y'all. Don't go there with me. You don't want to go there with me. I'll make you cry. I'll make you cry. So now, brothers and sisters, Garvey stays in New York. When Garvey gets to New York, guess who he goes to visit? When Garvey gets to New York, guess who he goes to visit? When Garvey gets to New York, guess who he goes to visit? He goes to visit WB Dubois at the NAACP crisis office. This is when Garvey first gets to America, March of 1916. He goes to visit Du Bois because he heard, W.E.B. Du Bois was a Pan-Africanist. He's 20 years older than Marcus Garvey, so he's old enough to be Marcus Garvey's father. So Marcus Garvey says, I'm going to go and visit my elder Pan-Africanist, W.E.B. Du Bois. But when he got there, Marcus Garvey was not impressed. Marcus Garvey said that when he walked into the NAACP office, I think he said the darkest thing in the office was W.E.B. Du Bois. He said it was all white folks and super light, bright black folks. He said nobody in there was dark skinned. And that's why those of you who know the history of the NAACP, and by the way, I have nothing against my light brothers and sisters. Okay, and Pan-African is everybody equal. Light skin, dark skin, nappy hair, straight hair. If you African, you African. The point that I'm making The point that I'm making is that W.E.B. Du Bois was a light-skinned supremacist. W.E.B. Du Bois was a light-skinned supremacist. And what a lot of you guys don't understand, his talented 10th was the comeback to Marcus Garvey, mass black organization. W.E.B. Du Bois' talented 10th was the comeback for Marcus Garvey's mass black organization. W.E.B. Du Bois' talented 10th, that was going to be a light-skinned bourgeoisie. W.E.B. Du Bois thought that the light-skinned black bourgeoisie should lead the race. He was an uppity Negro. Yes, he was Pan-Africanist. Yes, he was intelligent, but he was a jealous Negro. Let me say something to y'all. And I respect W.E.B. Du Bois. I pour libations at his grave whenever I go to Ghana. But let us understand. I want to clear this up. No, don't say F him. He's an ancestor. Don't you do that. And he did make his contribution. What he did to Garvey was wrong. What he did to Garvey was wrong. But we don't throw away no ancestors. We appreciate the good. We learn from the bad. I will still respect W.E.B. Du Bois for his contribution to Pan-Africanism and African scholarship. Let me be clear. Let me be clear, because I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Let me be clear. W.E.B. Du Bois is the father of sociology. I'm going to say it again. W.E.B. Du Bois, more than any white sociologist ever, W.E.B. Du Bois basically reinvented and elevated the study of social problems in America. He is the father of American sociology. Give credit where credit is due. Give credit where credit is due. With that being said, he was jealous of Garvey. Let me explain W.E.B. Du Bois' jealousy of Garvey. Let me explain W.E.B. Du Bois' jealousy of Garvey. W.E.B. Du Bois had an issue with Booker T. That man and W.E.B. Du Bois didn't get along. Because W.E.B. Du Bois, being the light-skinned supremacist that he was, being the black bourgeoisie, talented 10th Negro that he was, he didn't understand the importance of Booker T. Washington saying, we got to teach our people how to use their hands and build their own homes and build their own banks and build their own schools and build their own supermarkets. When Booker T. Washington was talking about black industrialization, when Booker T. Washington was talking about black industrialization, W.E.B. Du Bois kept worrying about being accepted by white folks. Booker T. Washington said, what good is a vote? Booker T. Washington told W.E.B. Du Bois, what good is a vote if our people don't have a job? What good is a vote if you can't take care of your family? What good is a vote if you don't have your own business? What good is a vote if we ain't got our own hospitals? We ain't got our own schools. Booker T understood what W.E.B. Du Bois was saying, and they were both Pan-Africanist. Booker T and W.E.B. were both Pan-Africanist. Booker T understood what W.E.B. was saying, but he said, you putting the cart before the horse. Politics don't control money. Money control politics. So Booker T was trying to get W.E.B. Booker T was trying to get W.E.B. to understand, until the black man can take care of his family, build a house with his hands, having the right to vote means nothing. And I think black America can see today. I think black America can see today that Booker T, they were both right. You need economic power, you need political power. They were both right. You need economic power and political power, but Booker T was more right because he understood that the economic power creates the political. Booker T was more right because he understood that the economic power creates the political power, brothers and sisters. See, W.E.B. Du Bois felt that after Booker T died, he had a right to be the leader of black America. W.E.B. Dubois felt Frederick Douglass is gone, Booker T. Washington is gone, I should be king. W.E.B. Dubois felt Frederick Douglass is gone, Booker T. Washington is gone, I should be king. So W.E.B. Dubois, with his doctorate from Harvard and all his degrees, he felt that now that Booker T is gone, I should be the new leader. I should be the new leader. Booker T dies in 1915. Garvey shows up in 1916. Marcus Garvey prevents W.E.B. Dubois. Marcus Garvey prevents unintentionally W.E.B. Dubois from becoming the new HNIC. W.E.B. wanted to be the new HNIC. W.E.B. wanted to be the new HNIC. He said, Douglass is gone, Booker T is gone, I'm the new king. And right before he ascended the throne of black leadership in America, right before W.E.B. Dubois ascended the throne of black leadership in America, a nappy-head Jamaican got off a banana boat. A nappy-head Jamaican got off a banana boat. A nappy-head Jamaican by the name of Marcus Garvey got off a banana boat and said, up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. And that black man from Jamaica organized more black people than any leader in any organization you've ever seen since, and he did not have to use a religion to do it. I'm going to repeat it twice. Right before Dubois became the leader, Garvey shows up off the banana boat, and Marcus Garvey starts speaking in Harlem, and he's organizing and energizing and motivating black people in a way no leader had done since Douglass. Garvey said, up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. And that made Dubois sit down. Garvey didn't have no Harvard degree, and he didn't need it. Garvey didn't study in Berlin, and he didn't need it. Garvey didn't come from Fisk, and he didn't need it. Garvey wasn't mixed race, and he didn't need it. And Garvey was able to build like no black man has ever built. And because of that, W.E.B. Dubois got jealous. My great-grandfather was Cuban. Cuba was the most thoroughly organized Garvey Island in the Caribbean. My great-grandfather was Cuban. Cuba was the most thoroughly organized Garvey Island in the Caribbean. And W.E.B. Dubois never forgave Garvey. W.E.B. Dubois never forgave Garvey for taking his place on the leadership ladder. See, we have to talk about the HNIC syndrome amongst black men. We have to talk about the HNIC syndrome amongst black men. We have to talk about the HNIC syndrome amongst black men. Okay? And for you coons up in here, my ancestor Frederick Douglass was born in slavery. You understand me? Enslaved Africans on all four of my family trees. Enslaved Africans on all four of my family trees. But I'm not into what y'all into. I don't care about none of them groups y'all belong to. All these anti-African groups, we want to identify with slavery, but we don't want to identify with Africa. You Negroes are stupid, and you following stupid people. You're stupid, and you're following stupid people. I don't want to identify with Africa. I want to identify with slavery. Those movements are trash, but I'm not going to convince you. I don't have to convince you. Because black America has been down that road before. This is nothing new. Those two fake groups that were started by YouTube opportunists, those groups ain't taking you nowhere. The leaders of neither one of them are doing anything in the streets for black people. They're not even leaders. They're just YouTube opportunists. They have never done anything for the black community. Nothing. They just think they can get some money by telling you don't be proud to be black. They think you can get some money by telling you don't come from Africa. They think they're going to help get you some reparations by telling you to hate the root of the tree. If you hate the root, you hate the whole tree. You hate Africa, you hate yourself, you fools. But I'm not going to convince you because we've already been down that way. Black America has already went through this. We're going to act like we're not from Africa. We've been through that, and it's gotten you nowhere. And it's never going to get you nowhere. Because if you understand anything about international relations, you have to understand that you must have allies. You got to have allies. You got to have allies. And I'm not giving up my biological allies in Africa. I'm not giving up my biological allies in the Caribbean. I'm not giving up my biological allies in the South Pacific. I'm not giving up my biological allies in Australia. You was a damn fool to let somebody convince you that you should disassociate from all your African kith and kin around the world so you can beg the white man for some crumbs. You are out of your mind. But guess what? You belong there. I want you to stay in those groups. And by the way, brothers and sisters, no disrespect to none of you. If you belong to either one of those African-American tribal groups, if you belong to either one of those fraudulent African-American tribalism groups, you will not be allowed on the campus of the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy. In fact, for all my Pan-Africanists out there, when you come to FDMG, if you spot one of those African-American tribalist groups members out there, anybody who say they're not from Africa, you're not allowed at my school. We don't teach that. I want to say it again. I want to make sure y'all understand me. So nobody's angry when you get escorted off the campus. If you are not from Africa, you do not belong at my school for any reason. It is a Pan-African nationalist institution. If you do not ascribe to the teachings of Pan-Africanism, of African solidarity, of race first, of African family first, if you are not unapologetically African, you are not allowed at my school. I want to be clear with you. I want to be clear. And I'm counting on my Pan-Africanists out there that if you catch any of them I'm not from Africa people at any event, you catch any of those I'm not from Africa people at any event, please show me who they are so I can kindly throw their asses off Ifatunde Avenue. Please show me who they are so they can kindly be escorted off of Dr.P.O.P.A Boulevard. I am an African. I was born it. I'm going to live it. I'm going to die it. That is my flag. It is red, it is black, it is green. It was given to me in August of 1920 from Marcus Garvey and the Pan-Africanists who attended the first international convention of the African peoples of the world in Madison Square Garden, New York City. That is the only flag that will ever fly at FDMG. If you got any other flag, if you got any other loyalty, you are not welcomed at our institution. I speak for me, I speak for my donors, I speak for my supporters, I speak for the African family of the world. Take your divisionist, tribalist, separatist, self-hating ass somewhere else. Don't bring it to Delaware. Don't bring it to Delaware. So now, let me get back focused. I had an ADHD moment. So W.B. Dubois worked to destroy Garvey because he was jealous. W.B. Dubois worked to destroy Garvey because he was jealous. Okay? We don't have to debate that, sister. You've made your choice. I wish you well with your movement and your leader. He's not going to build anything for you. He's not going to do anything for you. But you're too dumb to know that. So just go ahead and just leave us alone. We're not, the Pan-Africanists don't bother nobody, brothers and sisters. We do our own thing. The Pan-Africanists don't bother nobody. We just do our own thing. So let's keep on going. So, On Marcus Garvey's birthday, 1918, Marcus Garvey's birthday, 1918, so he's now 9707, so he's 30. Marcus Garvey's 31st birthday, the Negro World is published. The first copies of the Negro World are pushed under people's doors. The first copies of the Negro World is pushed under people's doors, okay? So people could get familiar with the Negro World. And then the Negro World was such in demand. Remember, there was no TV yet. No internet, no Facebook, no Twitter, no MySpace, no websites, no nothing. So the newspaper was the main organ of communication. The Negro World became the most popular black newspaper in modern history. They had to translate the Negro World into Spanish, French. I believe the Negro World ended up being translated into like 6 to 12 different languages, and it was shipped all around the world, but it was banned in Africa. Most European colonizers banned the Garvey newspaper. If you got caught with the paper, you could go to jail, you could be killed, you could lose your job. Okay? So they had to smuggle the newspaper into Africa. They had to smuggle the Negro World Garvey paper into Africa. So a lot of the men who were in the military, they would take the newspaper under their clothes. They would put it under their clothes. And when they go to Africa, they would give the newspapers to the children, and the children would run into the villages, and the griots in the villages, and the chiefs, and the nanas, and the babas, they would read Marcus Garvey editorial to the entire village. And that's how Garveyism spread throughout Africa, along with the divisions in Africa. And you should also know that South Africa was the most thoroughly organized Marcus Garvey country in Africa. South Africa was the most thoroughly organized Marcus Garvey nation in Africa. Okay? But you had chapters of the Garvey movement in just about every country in Africa, including the Congo, which is the richest piece of land in the world upon which the Black Panther story was written. Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. Patrice Lumumba was a Garveyite. All of the African independence leaders were Garveyite. See, Garvey dies in 1940. Garvey dies in England in 1940. 17 years later, Ghana is free. Kwame Nkrumah took the Garvey he studied in America, took it back, and birthed African independence from the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, which he said was the most important book, most influential book he ever read in his life. Somebody said, why did Garvey end up in Europe? Silly question, but you know that Jamaica was a colony of Europe. So if you were in a Jamaican colony, you had a much easier transit to Europe because you were considered one of the subjects of the crown of Europe, right? And Europe is right over Africa. Geographically, it's extremely close to Africa. So a lot of Pan-Africanists would go to Europe because it shrunk the gap of communication between them and the African continent. That's why so many Pan-Africanists ended up going to Europe as a strategic way to get close to Africa. Even until recently, when you fly to Africa, most of the time you had to fly into Europe first and then fly into Africa. Even now, when I go to Africa, a lot of times we have to stop in Europe or North Africa and then come down into sub-Saharan Africa. Okay? So, the Negro World is published on Garvey's birthday, 1918. 1919, Marcus Garvey incorporates the Black Star Line. 1919, Marcus Garvey incorporates the Black Star Line. 1919, Marcus Garvey incorporates the Black Star Line. Now, we got to talk about this. The Black Star Line was incorporated in Delaware in 1919. The Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy was incorporated in Delaware 2019. The Marcus Garvey Black Star Line was incorporated in Delaware 1919. The Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy was incorporated in Delaware 2019. There are no coincidences. I am the reincarnation. I am the reincarnation of Marcus Garvey, of Frederick Douglass, of Nat Turner, and so many more. So anyway, when Garvey launches the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation in 1919, this infuriates black leadership because no other black leader in America was doing anything close to what Garvey was doing when he decided to launch the Black Star Line Steamship Corporations. Sounds familiar, don't it? As you hear the story of Garvey, some of you are thinking about my story, aren't you? As you hear this Black Star Line story, you're thinking about the Dr.Umar story, because just like Garvey, none of my contemporaries in the so-called Black consciousness movement is doing anything close to what I'm doing with the building of the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy. They're doing the same thing WB Dubois is doing. They hated on Garvey because he was stronger than them. They hated on Garvey because he was more charismatic than them. They hated on Garvey because he was a better organizer than them. They hated on Garvey because he was more sincere than them. And I want to say this to you. And once again, to my light-skinned Africans, I have no problem with you. I might marry a light-skinned woman. I don't care what color you are. I care about how you think. But I want to be clear about this. Marcus Garvey violated an unwritten rule in Black America. Marcus Garvey violated an unwritten rule in Black America. And the unwritten rule that His Excellency, the Most Honorable Marcus Garvey, violated was being a dark-skinned African who had a nerve to be proud of it. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. Marcus Garvey violated an unwritten rule in Black American leadership. Marcus Garvey violated an unwritten rule in Black American leadership. And that unwritten rule is real simple. Leadership is not to be black-skinned. Leaders are not to be dark. And they are not to be proud of their darkness. Marcus Garvey had a nerve to not only be dark-skinned, richly melanated. He had a nerve to be proud of his black skin. Do y'all follow me, brothers and sisters? Do y'all follow me, brothers and sisters? Do y'all follow me, brothers and sisters? Garvey had a nerve to not only be chocolate, he was proud of it. Garvey had a nerve to not only be nappy. He not only was nappy, brothers and sisters. He not only was nappy, he had a nerve. The Most Honorable Marcus Garvey had a nerve to be proud, to be nappy in black. He pissed off WB Dubois. He pissed off A. Philip Randolph. He pissed off the NAACP. He pissed off the Urban League. He pissed off the black fraternities and sororities. He pissed off the Boule. Garvey pissed off the entire black intelligentsia. Garvey pissed off the entire black intelligentsia when he said, "Say it loud, I am black and I'm proud." James Brown may have wrote the song. James Brown may have wrote the song, but it was Marcus Garvey who created the Black and Proud movement. James Brown may have wrote the song, but it was Marcus Garvey who created The Black and Proud movement, brothers and sisters. Happy to be nappy. And that's why in the Garvey movement, did you know? Now, mind you, this is 1920. Garvey is at his height in the 20s. We only 50 years out of slavery. The black man in America is only 50 years out of slavery when Garvey is here. You are only 50 years out of slavery when Garvey shows up. And Garvey said, get rid of your wishbone and put a backbone. Garvey said, whatever we need, we can build it ourselves. Garvey said, you will never be free as long as you depend on the white man for what you need for the black man. Garvey said, up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will, brothers and sisters. We have never had a leader since who did what Garvey did. And Marcus Garvey is the only leader post Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Marcus Garvey is the only mass leader since Douglass and Washington who did not play up black people's religious handicap in order to keep their attention. I'm going to say it again. Every leader after Garvey threw a religion in your face and took you away from Africa. Every one of them. Although they copied Garvey, stole from Garvey, plagiarized Garvey, used Garvey Ho's program. Every one of them threw a religion in your face and took you away from Africa. Every one of them. Garvey didn't give you no Bible. Garvey didn't give you no Quran. Garvey didn't give you no Torah. Garvey gave you African independence, African pride, African government, African self-determination. That's what Garvey gave you, not no damn religion. The Garvey movement was built as a government. The Garvey movement was built as a government, not no damn church. Garvey built a government for African people. A government, not no church, a government. With all due respect, you are incorrect. That person you're naming does not have a school. In the state he lives in, independent schools have to be licensed. In the state he lives in, you got to have credentials to operate an independent school. In the state he lives in, independent schools are listed on the website. His school is not listed on the website, nor has it ever received a license to operate as an independent school. But y'all know more than me, so I'm not going to get into that. Y'all know more than me, so I'm not going to get into that. Y'all know more than me, so I'm not going to get into that. See, there's schools, there's clubs, there's tutoring programs, there's academic centers, but in the state he lives in, you have to be licensed to operate an independent school. He has no such license. Let me get back to the lesson. Let's talk about the Black Star Line. Why did Garvey launch the Black Star Line? Why did Garvey launch the Black Star Line? You out of your mind if you think you need a religion to organize. Black people don't need a religion. Black people don't need a religion. If you're using religion to organize black folks, you are outdated and you're useless. Okay? We don't suffer because of no Christianity, no Islam, or no Judaism or nothing else. Okay? The reason Marcus Garvey was the most successful black leader in modern history is he was the only one. The reason Marcus Garvey was the most successful black leader in modern history is because he was the only one. The reason Marcus Garvey was the most successful black leader in history is because he was the only one who understood that religion will cause more problems than it solves. They tried to get Marcus Garvey to make the UNIA a church. They tried to get Marcus Garvey to make the UNIA a mosque. They tried to get Marcus Garvey to make the UNIA a temple. Marcus Garvey said no. If you want to go worship Jesus, go to church. You want to go pray the way Muhammad taught you, go to the mosque. But Garvey said, in this organization, we exist for one purpose and one purpose only: to create an independent reality for African people wherever they live in the world. You will not reduce my organization into a religious movement. Garvey was too big to be reduced to a religion. Garvey was more successful than all the others because he had the wisdom to know that you don't put a religion on a racial movement. Culture, not religion. The Garvey movement was about African culture, not religion. African culture, not religion. How many people did Garvey have? 13 million documented members. 13 million documented members. 13 million documented members were a part of the Garvey movement in his lifetime. Do you know what that means? We're going to get the Black Star Line in a minute. We're going to get the Black Star Line in a minute. 13 million members, making the Garvey movement the largest black organization in modern history without a religion. Do you know what that means? You can add up every black group in America right now. You can add up every major black group in America right now, every member they've ever had since they've been founded, and you still don't get the 13 million that Garvey had. You have the internet. Garvey didn't have the internet. You have the airplane. Garvey didn't have the airplane. You have Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook. Garvey had none of that. And he organized more Africans in the world than all you other Garvey copycat organizations put together. I'm just spitting facts. I'm just spitting facts. I'm just spitting facts. I'm just spitting facts. So, October the 14th of 1919, a coon by the name of George Tyler goes into what I believe was the Black Star Line office in New York City, pulls out a gun and starts shooting at Marcus Garvey. This is the first assassination attempt on the life of the most honorable Marcus Garvey. When the shots start busting, Marcus Garvey's wife, Queen Mother Amy Garvey, jumps in front of Garvey, and I believe she tumbles down the steps with the would-be killer. And the would-be killer gets up, runs off. He is later accosted, arrested, and while awaiting prison, he commits suicide while awaiting prison. This was October the 14th of 1919. We believe that either the FBI or some of Mr. Garvey's jealous Negro competitors paid George Tyler to go kill Marcus Garvey. And when he did not succeed and got arrested, they had him murdered in jail so that it could not come out as to who really hired him to assassinate the most honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. On Christmas Day of the same year, 1919. On Christmas Day of 1919, The Honorable Marcus Garvey marries Queen Mother Amy Garvey. February of that year, WB Dubois holds his Pan-African conferences. Okay? Pan-African conferences. Dubois was holding his conferences in Europe for a integrationist, Pan-Africanist contingency. Okay? Garvey was holding massive black conferences in New York for grassroots Africans from around the world. W.E.B. Dubois is holding Pan-African congresses in Europe with the black intelligentsia and the white intelligentsia. So Garvey laughed at W.E.B. Dubois. Marcus Garvey laughed at W.E.B. Dubois. Okay? He laughed at him and said, you in Europe with a handful of coons and Caucasians thinking you doing something for Africa. See, W.E.B. Dubois was cursed with something that a lot of black scholars are cursed with. Dr. King is an exception. I am an exception. And a few others with PhDs, real doctorate degrees, not the ones they give out in the conscious community, but the ones you earn. There's a few exceptions to this. But for most of black history, scholars have not been able to relate to the grassroots brothers and sisters on the ground, and they have not made great organizers because intellectually they see themselves as better than. Do you understand? And socially, they no longer come from the grassroots. See, W.E.B. Dubois couldn't organize black people the way Garvey did because W.E.B. Dubois was a bougie, light-skinned supremacist. His color wasn't the problem, brothers and sisters, but the fact that he thought he was better because of his color. Let me say that again. His color wasn't the problem, but the fact that he thought he was better because he was so light, he couldn't relate. He couldn't relate. Dr. King is an exception. Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. And we'll be celebrating Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad's birthday in Brooklyn, Tuesday, January the 12th, I believe it is. For those of y'all who want to come, it's going to be a special 2-hour program in Brooklyn. Tuesday, January the 12th, from 4 p.m. until 6, we will be at the Magnolia Tree in Brooklyn. The Magnolia Tree in Brooklyn, 677 Lafayette Avenue. 677 Lafayette Avenue in Brooklyn, January the 12th, 2021, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad birthday. We will be celebrating him. Dr. Khalid and Marcus Garvey had a lot in common. Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad and Marcus Garvey had a lot in common. I'm going to give you 3 things they had. Both of them were unapologetically African. Both of them. Both of them were black-skinned, dark-skinned black men who were proud to be black. Both of them. Dr. Khalid was proud of his blackness. The Honorable Marcus Garvey was proud of the blackness. And both of them left us around the age of 53. Marcus Garvey left us at the age of 53. Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad left us around the age of 53. Stop asking me to debate your leader. I called him out a couple years ago for a debate. He don't want that smoke. He don't want that smoke. I will gladly debate him anywhere, any day, any time, but y'all gonna raise some money for the school. Okay? He can get these intellectual hands. That is no problem. I will destroy him intellectually. I will destroy him. He is not a scholar. He is not well-read. He is not well-trained. He is a hustler. I will destroy your leader on any stage, in any city, any day, any night. But I'm going to charge y'all the Ain't From Africa tribe, y'all gonna have to donate $20,000 to the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, and I will gladly debate your leader. I will come to his town and debate him. I'll debate him in his house. I'll debate him on his front yard. I will intellectually assassinate that man. But y'all gonna pay the school $20,000 for the benefit of my time. Peace and Black power. Let's get back. Okay. So Garvey and Khalid both broke the rule. The Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey and Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad both broke the rule of being chocolate, dark-skinned black leaders who were proud to be black. Proud to be black. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. And I'm not trying to play up the light-skinned, dark-skinned thing. Because we all one family. I'm not playing that up. I love my light-skinned Africans. I love my dark-skinned Africans. I ain't got no issues with nobody. I love a yellow sister like I love a chocolate sister. Don't make a difference to me. But I do want to say this. I have noticed that most of the so-called scholars that I have had issues with, most of the so-called scholars, just like Garvey, most of the so-called scholars that have had issues with